Sometimes they would hire boys dressed as girls to do the dancing. My memories are very, very happy ones, really, because we were out in the open air, walking in patrols, climbing up the mountains there. Every now and then we would visit a post, and we were nearly always given something to eat, and sometimes there would be a feast.
Fredrik Barth is a well-known Norwegian anthropologist. He went to Waziristan during his research in the northwestern region of Pakistan in the 1950s and 60s.
I've had the pleasure to spend quite a bit of time among Pashto-speaking people in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And being among them is a real pleasure. They have a bad reputation, but in fact anyone who has met them, I think, has experienced this friendliness and warmth that is so characteristic. According to their ideology, they should be hospitable, and they should take trouble and please guests and visitors, and indeed they do. I once was walking along a road, and a Pathan was sitting in the roadside having one of these loaves of naan, of bread, dordai, and he said, "Come, sit down." And we shared his bread, and he said, "This is the great advantage of being poor. You can share your loaf of bread, and you have been hospitable, and you have made friends, and then you can walk off, and you don't have to worry." People who own too much, they're always worrying about being cheated, about being, robbed and so on. I, as a poor man, am free. And that's the Pashtun ideal, I think, to maintain your individual freedom and your style and excellence, to live by standards of honor and be independent. And this is true all over, but maybe the wazirs are the wazirs and mahsuds, the people in the Waziristan area, are the most famous of all. It's a poor area, so they are poor, but they have gone out of their area. They've long, for example, been in charge of much of the bus and lorry transport. So they make money outside, but they love their home country. The idea of Pashtun or Wazir and Masud integrity is planted and accepted and respected, because the whole tribal system is one where people have been able to live their own lives. And it has never been a perfect system, but show me one that is.
US forces are stationed just across the border of Waziristan in Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda and Taliban have bases and training camps in Waziristan, and from here Al-Qaeda and Taliban terrorists cross over into Afghanistan to attack US, NATO forces and Afghan National Army. Similarly, the terrorists from Waziristan went all across Pakistan and attacked the security forces and civilians in the country.
With the war in Afghanistan, the refugees came there, they were given refuge, and here were all these idle young men who had no land and who crossed the border and fought in Afghanistan, but had a lot of free time in the tribal area. And so it's quite clear that the area was infiltrated by Muslim teachers who took advantage of the inactivity of these men and recruited them for their movements. So maybe the idleness of being a refugee has made it possible for more orthodox forces to get influence over them.
Nuda सरचूं के तसलसल आगा दे अदे ज़ियाउलक सवाल करना मुजाहिदीन ने जो कला खल कर यू बचा यू अलग जंग किस तरह सी मतलब है दाज़े तवस्ताद कुम जिदा मु गैर मुल्की वर्ता हुआ उस बक्ती ताजक दिया अफ़गानिस्तान दी करना दे खबर कहूँ एक environment सर इंसान खुदा करना सर कस खुद environment सर ही करना दे कुम environment मिलाओ शी बाम में पर तड़ले हो जैकेट पे वैसे जंगल के बेश पे करना सर एक बस से कड़ी है
I would never have guessed that it would change that way. Of course, this is partly produced by external forces and events. And it's not that they weren't politically active at that time and long before, but it wasn't disciplined within a sort of an extremist concept of Islam.
Sometimes it is rumored that Osama bin Laden is hiding in Waziristan.
Bin Laden came into Afghanistan through agreements with people within Afghanistan, and the involvement from the tribal side was limited, even when he was established there.
There have been tribal clashes and disputes in Waziristan, but were never motivated by religion.
The motivation was honor and wrongs being done against them, and not any sort of elaborate Muslim idea. They are, of course, Muslims, and they are very aware of their identity as Muslims. But even more than other Pashtuns, they are rather independent or they have been rather independent in their attitude to Islam. Many places among Pashtuns, there's a separate population, sort of almost like a caste of mullahs and holy men. Wazirs don't have that. Ordinary wazirs are mullahs in their mosques. But they themselves also used to admit that they didn't know much about Islam. They just were Muslim, and they didn't have to do anything special to be that. The idea that music and dance and narcotics and so on is so bad is not an idea that they are very excited about. They enjoy free life, not licentious, but they want to be autonomous.
Contrary to the wider opinion, Osama bin Laden has never been popular among the ordinary people of Waziristan.
I don't think that Osama bin Laden has ever had much of a following among Wazirs. So I think if there were not a big conflict going, he would have less sympathy. On the other hand, he knows that too. So he would probably maintain a level of conflict where, in fact, he was active enough to trigger the support of tribal people. It's not just for the Americans to disappear. The support for the insurgents comes from other foreign states than America or the NATO states. Large parts of the Near East, of